Hey everyone, this is Brooks Kubik and John Wood, and we're back with another issue, another installment of Dinosaur Radio. And we're just going to jump right into something that we've been wanting to talk about. It's something that both of us use in our workouts an awful lot, and we've had great success with it. That is the good old-fashioned farmer's walk, aka the farmer's carry. John, when did you first start doing this exercise?
I must have been 14 or 15, somewhere in that range. Uh, no, I can actually tell you exactly when I started because it was the very first thing I did in the very first workout that I ever did, very first serious workout that I ever did. And I was about 13, and I was at the Hammer Strength offices in Cincinnati, and I had just come back from a basketball camp. It was in the morning, and my dad picked me up, and I had to spend the rest of the day at work with my dad. And he says, "All right, you're going to start working out." He said, "I want you to go downstairs, and I want you to get a pair of, I think it was 25-pound dumbbells or 30-pound dumbbells or whatever there were." And to get the way the since the hammer strength offices were, there was a upper floor, and then the lower floor was uh, a giant room, a giant basement. It was actually 100 years before that. It was where they wound up the cables for the cable cars that used to be in Cincinnati long before I got there. But it had a long staircase, it had about 50 stairs and then one landing. And he said the workout is simply this. You go downstairs, you get these dumbbells, and you walk, carry one in each hand, and walk up the stairs and touch the top step and then carry them back down. And I want you to do that 5 times. And that was my workout. That was essentially my very first serious workout that I ever did. And
Mhm.
that's how I got started.
Cool. And is it fair to say that you've been doing the farmer's walk pretty much ever since?
Absolutely. Uh, from time to time, sometimes I'll focus on it very intently. Sometimes I'll throw it in at the end just as a finisher or something like that. But it's definitely been a part of my training in some form for, and you figure that was 92. So that was a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. Can't. I'm too tired right now to do the math, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I've been doing the farmer's walk, I guess, since the early 90s. Before I started writing about it in the manuscript that became Dinosaur Training, which I released in 1996. So, yeah, that'd be 1992, 1993. I've always found the farmer's walk to be a tremendous exercise, a complete total body exercise, obviously a great grip developer. It's actually, in my opinion, one of the best grip developers or the best grip exercises out there. But beyond that, I think it's a wonderful total body exercise. And one thing that I think really places it up at the top of all possible exercises is that it's not about conventional sets and reps. You push yourself to go a certain distance, or you push yourself to carry whatever you're carrying as far as you possibly can, or you do your carry as a timed carry. But the point is, it's not standard sets and reps. And you're not sitting there thinking about, do I do 5 reps or 8 reps or 10 reps or 20 reps? Or, gee, I'm really tired, but I've got 4 more to do. Don't know if I can do them. Instead, you're just focused on somewhere off in the distance and on getting there, turning around, and coming back. And it's a completely different mindset. I think it's a great way to teach people to train to failure because it encourages you to work as hard as you possibly can. You hold on, you hold on, you hold on, you hold on to try to get that particular distance before you put them down. And for a lot of people, that translates into working much harder on their barbell and dumbbell exercises. So I think it's great for that purpose.
Yeah, very much so. I think it involves everything and involves the mental side of things, obviously very important, especially for what we teach and what the average person is in need of. And it's great for younger kids. It can be adapted in many different ways, many different types of equipment. You could do it for time, you could do it for specific lengths of distance. You could adapt it any number of ways and any number of participants, whether they're older, they're younger, injured, whatever the case. I think that it's something that is a very good exercise to have in your toolbox.
Absolutely. And in that regard, something that I've found works really well with student athletes is giving them a variety of different types of weighted carries to try.
Mhm.
So you've got the standard farmer's walk where you've got one weight in each hand and the weights are equal. But you can do the same thing with weights that are not equal. Hold 100 pounds in one hand and 70 pounds in the other hand, and it gives you a different effect, if you will. It makes it unbalanced. And now you have to work to hold the proper position for the entire distance with an unbalanced load. You also can do a one-arm farmer's carry, which I think is a great exercise. You can do a farmer's carry where you have lighter dumbbells, lighter weights, you hold them in a hammer curl position. That is a tough one. And I'll tell you what, if you want to, quote, pump up those biceps, pump up your forearms, work your grip into the ground, that's a tremendous exercise. I also have the kids do a farmer's walk front carry with dumbbells where they hold them extended to the front and as if they were doing a front raise. Try doing that, by the way, with a sandbag or a medicine ball or a kettlebell or even a 39-pound concrete block. That one will just wipe you out and wipe you out quickly. You can do a kettlebell or a dumbbell lateral raise carry, where you hold the arms extended to the sides in a lateral raise movement and do your farmer's walk then. You can do overhead press variations. Obviously, be careful if you do those. You don't want to drop anything on your head. One really good way of doing them is with dumbbells, a barbell, or kettlebells. I think dumbbells are the easiest at eye level. Just right at eye level. So it's a shoulder isometric, it's a press isometric, and you just carry them. And that's tough. And you can do any of those with both arms loaded or one arm loaded. So it's a unilateral exercise. Really, really good stuff and a lot of variety. Do you do variations on the farmer's walk? Do you do other types of weighted carries?
I've done them in the past from time to time, so I'll go through different phases, so to speak, with my training, but I think there's always something interesting you can work on. And sometimes it's just fun to have some variety and just see how it goes. You can always use different implements. People usually use dumbbells or they have some type of specialty farmer's walk implement, which are good too. My only recommendation or an important thing that I could just pass on to everybody is that there's certain types of farmer's walk handles which load at the top, which leave no space if you were to drop them. You want some type of farmer's walk implement where there's some space between your feet potentially and the implement itself, if in fact you had to drop it in a hurry. I just, every time I see people using those, and usually they've got them loaded up fairly heavy, I cringe because I just think of what's going to happen if all of a sudden they have to drop it in a hurry and there's nowhere to go and their foot's in the way. And I don't even want to think about it. So I'm a big fan of not tempting fate. So I think that that's something that you definitely want to keep in mind for. And I mean, I think you should keep it in mind regardless because you've got a heavy weight just anyway. You want to always know where it is in relation to your body and your feet and so on. But as long as you've got something that is not going to automatically crush your feet if you drop it, I think it would make sense to just do it that way, just so you're not tempting fate any more than you need to anyway.
Well, in that regard, a lot of people are immediately going to say, John, I do something that's really safe. I do a farmer's walk with a trap bar. What do you say to that?
At this point, I've said it so many times that I throw my hands up and say, you can do whatever you want. I just don't want to be the person that if somebody's doing a trap bar farmer's walk and all of a sudden they step on a banana peel and you are all of a sudden you are encircled by that piece of equipment. So it's just, again, there's a lot of things that could go bad in that situation. I don't want it to happen to me. I don't want it to happen to somebody that I'm coaching or doing it as a result of my stewardship. But at this point, it's always also obvious that people are going to do what they're going to do.
Well, we've been saying for many years, don't do a farmer's walk with a trap bar, and everybody keeps coming back and saying, "Oh, but I love doing it that way." Blah blah blah. And yet the fact of the matter is, it is an accident waiting to happen. And if it does happen, and you go down suddenly, because that's what happens in accidents, and you get tangled up in the bars, you trip forward or to the side or backward, that's a bad leg injury, probably a bad knee or hip injury. And why do it? You don't need to do it. You don't need to tempt fate.
Sure.
Uh, and you can always find something else that you can use for a farmer's walk.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just also something as simple as a couple of sandbags. We've talked about this. You can go to the hardware store and get a couple bags of rock salt for $3 each, or you could get canvas duffel bags or something like that. They're just as effective as in terms of doing the exercise, and they're not going to cause any problems or minimal problems if in fact you had to bail out at some point in time. So I would certainly go that route. I would consider that route. Just as a rule of thumb, I think what's the worst that can happen? I think I always try to consider that before I do any exercise to just try to think about heading off any potential problems before they happen. And that's just me. I know not everyone does that kind of thing, but I don't want to be the one that ends up as the example of what not to do as a result of something that I could have avoided before I got started.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. The other important point from a safety point of view is if you are going somewhere where there's traffic or there could be traffic, you really want to keep an eye out on where you're going, who's in front of you, who's behind you. I do backward summer walks. I do backward farmer walks and really enjoy them. I think they're a really good exercise. I use two hands. I use one hand. It's it varies. It's different, but it's a very interesting, effective exercise. But boy, you have to know where your surface is. And if you're going to do a backward walk, walk it forward first and then walk back. So you at least have an idea. Is it level? Is there a slippery spot? Are you safe? And so on. And I would never do a backward walk anywhere where there's traffic coming towards me or a bicyclist coming towards me, even a pedestrian coming towards me. It's like, no, we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
So those are considerations. I have an interesting story about the farmer's walk, and it involves the student athletes that I train. When I started them on the farmer's walk last spring, they would go a short distance, like, down to the car over there where the cars are parked, down to the car over there, the blue car, and back. And then we started going further. And then there's an open field close to the gym, and it was like, okay, go all the way over to that field and across the field and back, which for a while they thought was the hardest, most difficult thing they'd ever done in their lives. And then I said, okay, I want you to go either in pairs or three of you spread out so you're not going to drop anything on each other. But I want you to go all the way around the high school gymnasium. And the high school gymnasium has a big weight room, very big wrestling room, big woodworking room, big room for the robotics and CAD class. couple of bathrooms, big basketball gym, bunch of small offices and rooms at the front part of the gym, boys' locker room, girls' locker room. It's a big building. So I say, go all the way around it. If you have to stop, that's fine. If you want to, do a one-handed carry, and when your right arm is tired, switch to the left arm. Doesn't matter, but the point is, whatever it takes, your assignment is to go all the way around the gym. And of course, around the entire gymnasium. And the first time they do it, they come back and they look like they're just dead. And gradually they get better and better at it. And now they are pretty impressive in terms of what kind of carries they can do, what kind of weight they can handle, and how they look when they're done. And they'll look tired, but they don't look like they've beaten themselves into the ground. They're much stronger and much better conditioned. So anyhow, about a month ago, we had parent-teacher conferences, and they were held after school in the gymnasium. So they had all the teachers had their own table, little chair. They were sitting there. And so if you had a kid who was in English class, you would go in and you'd wait in line until it was your turn, and then you'd talk for a couple minutes with the English teacher, and then you'd go talk for a couple minutes with the science teacher or whatever. It went on for like 3 hours. It was this really long, tiring process for the teachers. You can just imagine that. It was sort of like 3 hours of speed dating or something. But so the teachers are doing that. The parents are coming in the front door of the gymnasium. And I send my student athletes, my student weight trainers out the back door on the other side of the gym, armed with dumbbells and kettlebells of various sizes, and they're in their groups, and here they go. And I knew that they were going to be passing a lot of parents who were going to be wondering what in the world is going on. And so thinking ahead, as a strength coach should do, I told them what to say if anybody asked what they were doing. The answer was very simple: bad grades. And I was so disappointed because no one asked and they didn't have to use that answer. But it would have been a good one. One final question on the farmer's walk, John. Somebody might ask, you're not really working any muscle group to failure when you do the farmer's walk, other than perhaps the grip. So what's the point? What is the point?
For me, it's 100% willpower. It's just putting yourself in front of a challenge, putting a challenge in front of yourself and just saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to carry this 110-pound pair of dumbbells from goal line to goal line or something like that. And just saying, I'm just going to do it and programming your mind to do it. At the end of the day, is it perfect exercise? Is it ideal exercise? Is it full range of motion and so on and so forth? No, not at all. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But if the goal here is to strengthen your body in a meaningful way, I mean, they talk about functional training, quote unquote. But what's more functional than carrying an object from point A to point B? You're going to have to do that. I'm not saying that that's something that should direct your training entirely, but at the same time, it's something that makes a lot of sense for people to do. And I think that you can challenge yourself and you'll gain not just from a muscular standpoint, but from a mental standpoint. I mean, you're seeing that with your kids that are training with you after school. And it's amazing that all of a sudden, once they get used to doing that kind of thing, how much progress will happen in a very quick amount of time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. And you reminded me that you and I did a course on willpower that you have in your strength app.
Yes.
And one of the things in there is the farmer's walk.
Yep.
And the reason is very specifically because it is a wonderful exercise for training and developing and building willpower. So I think we'll leave it right there. If anyone has questions or comments about the Farmer's Walk, if anybody has variations of it that they want to share with others, leave a comment. We welcome your feedback. We always want to hear from you. And we'll be back pretty soon with another episode. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Brooks.
Catch you later, everyone.